Um, it is interesting on how the entire thing plays out for the Bulls and Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause, Jerry Reinsdorf and Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr and others. These things can be true. Scottie Pippen can be an incredibly unselfish basketball player. Great alongside Michael Jordan. But he can be a very, very selfish teammate. And how are those things the same? I thought the first episode or two focused on his contract and them waiting for Pippen to come back. Jordan was criticized by some because he said he felt like it was selfish that Scottie waited so long to get his foot operated on. And then last night we dove into the playoff series against the Knicks when Jordan had retired and Scottie took himself out of the game because the play wasn't run for him. And the crazy part was, Ryan, you tell me, didn't I say this was going to be a big thing once they get to it? This is they have a tendency to look things in a very linear fashion. Scottie Pippen came from nowhere, gets to the NBA, first-round pick. Bulls sign him to nothing contract, and they reap the benefits for the life of that contract, and then they allow him to go on his way and get a big contract elsewhere. That's not how it went down. Not how it went down. He did sign a long-term deal. Everybody did then. Magic Johnson's contract was 25 years, $25 million, the biggest in NBA history when it was signed. Jordan had a long-term deal. That's why Jordan, up until those last 2 years, he was wildly underpaid. But the story about Pippen wasn't just that he didn't like the contract. It was they could never get over, fans could never get over, and Pippen, knowing they could never get over, didn't even try to get over sitting out at the end of a game in which Tony Kukoc made the shot. I can't believe no one ever asked Phil, hey, Phil, if they went to overtime, was he still sitting? We're going to put him back in. No one will ever know. But what is really remarkable to me is how Scottie Pippen went from a sympathetic figure. I can't believe his ex-wife's like, don't worry, he did fine. People looked up, like, he made over $100 million. He did fine. That's how sympathetic people were towards Scottie Pippen at the start of the series. Now they're like, dude, Scottie Pippen was selfish. He was kind of a jerk. He was a bit of a prima donna. Fair or unfair, it's the perception that becomes the reality because we call this thing a documentary. People keep blaming Krause and to a lesser extent Reinsdorf for not, why didn't you pay Scottie Pippen? There's your answer. Right? There's your answer. I've said this before about the CBA or the USPL. I was in the USPL in 2000. I was in the USPL twice, but I'll never forget, my dad would say, son, there's a reason. You're in there because they don't think you can shoot. Some guys eat their way out of the league. Some guys, it's women, too many women out of the league. Some guys it's booze. Some guys it's pills. Some guys it's gambling. There's always a reason. And look, Scottie didn't have any major flaws as a player. He was seen as soft early on, and they toughened him up. But if you factor, he signed a long-term contract. Why wouldn't they give him a new deal? Game 7 against the Pistons, has a migraine. Win a couple titles and Jordan goes away, takes himself out of a deciding part of a playoff game. And then doesn't get surgery until right before the season instead of at the start of the summer, the way everyone knows it should happen because I just want to have a good summer. What? You want to know why Scottie Pippen hadn't gotten his contract torn up? Part of it was that was the Bulls' philosophy. Part of it was the salary cap was much lower and there was going to be a lockout. Part of it was, would you get into business long-term with a guy like that? The guy who put his own personal gains so far ahead of the team that he took himself out of the game. And then to make it even worse, he's like, I'm going to die on this hill. You know, it was a really tough, bad moment or whatever, but I would do it again. You're like, what? Wait, hold on. Hey, keep it down. Hold on, let me rewind this. I would do it again. But he said in the Scottie Pippen voice, can you guys do the Scottie Pippen voice? It's so deep. It's really remarkable. Are those veneers or those real teeth? Does anybody know? Does Buyer, you have any idea if those are veneers or real teeth?
I don't know. I actually was just going to do a search. I think they got to be veneers, but that's just my guess, but I'll look.
You're going to look because that could be on the internet? How did you feel about Scotty before the duck?
About the same that I feel right about now. Like, I still remember that, sitting out.
Right. That one's a hard one to get over.
Yeah.
A hard one to get over.
Oh, that was Jordan's take, right? Like, he called up Phil.
I disagree with Dan. Dan said that was like, it's still a big deal in Chicago. Dan Patrick, he was on with us. I disagree. I think any basketball guys or guys we all remember that's still a big thing. That in the Chicago thing, that's a big, in your legacy, that's a hard one to get over. Like Isaiah threw the ball away against Bird, but Isaiah came back and won 2 NBA titles after, do you guys remember the Bird steals the ball, Bird to DJ, right?
Yes.
Okay. There are things that you do, you're like, I can't believe he did that. But he did. Pippen did it, and I guess overcame it and won 3 more titles. But to say I'd do it again is like, what are you doing? That's one of those. Even if you want to say you'd keep it real. I mean, they acknowledged, and that was during the first year. And if you look at it, they tried to kind of clean it up and like, well, they had this come to Jesus talk, and he played great the next game. They still lost to the Knicks in 7 games, and Game 7 wasn't particularly close, and I don't think he played particularly well. So they lost to the Knicks, and then the team falls apart. That's a big part of why the team fell apart. And they made it a point to say that the team was a mess the second year. And then Jordan kind of covered it up because he came back and dropped a double nickel in the Garden. I don't know. I told you this is how you're going to feel about Scotty, that no one was going to care about the contract as soon as you remembered this moment. Then you factor in the migraine. Then you factor in that he didn't have the surgery until the end of summer. I mean, Scottie Pippen has 2 memorable quotes. And one was, I would do it again. And the other one was, yeah, I didn't have the surgery done because I wanted to have a fun summer. Who says that? The answer is Scottie Pippen.
I rewound it, Doug. I wasn't sure that I was like, maybe he said like, I would do it over, and I rewound it to hear. No, he did say he wouldn't, he wouldn't have changed anything.
I wouldn't change anything. Not one thing. That's like the guy in, what is that, Meet the Millers? No regrets? No regrets? Not even one? He's holding down the tattoo. No, it's misspelled. This was Michael Jordan's longtime trainer, Tim Grover, talking about the dedication that Jordan had.
After the season, usually there's a time period where Michael takes some time off. The night they lost to Orlando, I said, Michael, I'm about to get out of here. Let me know when you want me to see you, because I'll see you tomorrow. Michael had an obligation to himself, the fans, his teammates, the organization, his family, everybody. He said, if you're going to sit down and take 3 hours out of your day to watch me on TV, I have an obligation to give you my best. To give you my best all the time.
So remember, that's after he lost to Orlando coming back. But we should have seen the retirement thing coming. And look, there is a certain genius to some of these NBA players with the load management. Jordan did not have load management. there's a certain genius to some of these guys not doing the Olympic thing. Obviously, he was worn down by the Olympics, and but they needed that for the sport. His level of stardom, I think we've only seen really with LeBron James, and maybe Steph Curry. Steph Curry, I think I believe Steph is actually in that conversation in terms of his overall superstardom nationally and probably internationally as well. And then the thing about it is, like, look, he wasn't taking practices off. He wasn't doing what Shaquille O'Neal would do, which is show up to practice and training camp and play his way into shape. That wasn't how he rolled. But just like there's a price for how you treat people and for getting guys to play at your level and to compete on a daily basis at your level, there is a price for going all out all the time. NBA players now do not have the same type of practices. There's not the same sort of mentality, not the same kind of contracts. Why can guys walk away so much easier? Because you make $20 million, $30 million a year, that's monopoly money. You're not going to spend 1 year's salary, let alone 10 years' salary. This is not the NFL where guys are rushing back to play games because, again, not the bottom 5 guys on a bench, but the top 10 guys on a bench all do really, really well. And they can wait. They can wait. That's the difference. The NBA career is longer. I mean, go look at contracts in the NBA. Go pull them up, and you'll be blown away by how much how much money most of these guys make. And that's why they can take their time and be methodical and, figure out what's what. Salary cap this year, by the way, is $99 million for 15 guys. And if you look, how about this one? There are 51 players making $20 million or more in the NBA. 51. There's 450 NBA players. 51 are making $20 million or more. 124 are making $10 million or more. 124. You make $10 million a year, somebody wants to cut 25% off, you're going to be pissed about it, but you're like, you know what? I wasn't going to spend that money anyway. There are 199 guys making $5 million a year or more. 199. It's just a completely different, so they don't have to worry as much about the next deal or the next paycheck. They're good. There's a difference in mentality, and that's why they can take their time coming back. Jordan's mentality, go for it all the time, combined with the stardom, no load management, winning titles, all those extended playoff series, and they added his second time around, they added the playoff series, grinded through practices. We should have seen it coming that he was going to step aside.